and multitudes more than some of the others?
I really can't believe we do. I hear other people's postings and talk to other people, and I think we certainly condition less than Bonnie does.
Yeah.
We
We also condition a lot on the canal when it's open, which is flat, mostly flat, and that gets a lot more speed work into them, which is good for
Good surface.
aerobic. Is it aerobic or anaerobic? I think aerobic exercising.
Yeah, I think we do more speed work in our conditioning than a lot of people do. Another factor is, like Jen said, freak of nature. I mean, I've got several horses that just,
And a lot of it, not a lot of it, but some of it is also the attitude that we have with the horse. Because I know somebody, she has good horses, but every once in a while you can just tell that the horse is feeding off of her energy and it's too much, and they just need that moment to chill.
so a lot of it
You
is,
should show them the back of your jacket, because that's part of,
oh, this is our club, our UMECRA club.
that's part of your abilities right there, what it says on
The Persevere.
the Persevere.
Yeah, that's our motto. That's UMECRA's motto, persevere. Finishes to win is the national motto, but persevere, that's what we do. I've been in this sport since '82, and not every year was a record wonderful year, obviously. I broke my leg on March 13th of 2008 on a conditioning ride, and it was pretty darn devastating, but I remember as I'm laying half submerged in the canal, listening to my horse trotting away from me, I remember thinking, well, he didn't get hurt, he sounds sound, he's okay. And John, my husband, was in the hospital at that time having a hip replacement. Jen was gonna come out and do chores at 6:30, but this was 11 o'clock in the morning, and nobody was gonna know that the horse came home and I didn't. 2 weeks later, Larry welded me this giant stirrup, and and then about 3 weeks later, he came out and lifted me up and put me on a horse. I didn't tell my doctor, of course. And I only rode the ones I trusted then. I just rode Shaman and Thunder. But, yeah, I think he did. But, came back that year, did pretty darn well. Persevere. If something goes wrong, you try and figure out what that something is, you try and fix it if you can, and then part of it you have to just say, bad luck, and, live with it.
I know nothing about horses, except what I see on them. But what about their shoes or their feet?
We should have talked about, I told Mike we'd talk about feet, and everybody, once again, everybody else has a different opinion on that. Real popular right now is something called barefoot trimming, where you don't put a shoe on, but you trim the horse, like Mike says, our shoer says, you trim the horse to look like what one of my horses that isn't shod feet naturally ends up looking like, okay? I have problems with that because some of the rides we go to have hellacious rocks, and unless you want to slow down to a walk in those spots, your horse needs some hoof protection. A lot of people ride in what's called easy boots. We've never had any luck with easy boots.
Yeah, and Renegade's another product.
Yeah, but it's not a shoe, and for those of you that have horses, you're familiar with this like boot that you put on the horse, okay?
It's like a funky sneaker.
Yeah.
It's like a rubber sneaker.
Yeah. Pretty. And I rode a horse for a friend at the World Equestrian Games selection ride, and my friend was from Montana, and they ride in these glue-on easy boots all the time, and they do really well, but they don't ride in slick grass that's this tall, and
They don't ride in mud either.
no, and they don't ride in mud either, they ride in the Continental Divide up and down. That horse fell with me at the ride. Remember how big one of my butt cheeks was by the end of the ride? But so, you got to decide on the terrain. Some rides you can ride barefoot.
And some horses go better in other things. Some horses do go better in the boots, some though do better in the shoes. We got 2 horses now that go better in 4 shoes. Usually we just do fronts.
Yeah, but there are horses that are gonna be going faster and harder, we put shoes on back of them too. But once again, that's everybody's different opinion and what works for them.
The vets don't have any.
No, the vets don't say anything about your shoe.
If we lose a shoe at a ride, or if the horse has a boot on and they trot out and they look a little off, they'll say try putting a shoe back on or take the boot off, because sometimes the boot can cause a rub. Because that could be a slight interference in their way of movement that causes it, so you try to fix it to see if it makes a difference.
Do you have people that put the shoes on?
Sometimes you're lucky. Yeah, I've had people who are in the race with me, and we come into a check, and this hasn't happened much to me lately, but I've had somebody come over and during their break, put a shoe back on my horse.
Yeah.
And that's, once again, what I love about this sport.
At the local rides, you usually know who you can contact, or ride management will know who you can get a hold of. At the bigger rides, they usually have a designated farrier that's there specifically to put shoes back on.
If you know you're going to a ride,
Yeah, there is a fair number, but you don't exactly know who to contact if you're not from the area.
And I try to carry a set of shoes for every horse that's shaped to their foot. So if I find somebody like Aaron now or Joey or Guy or somebody, they don't have to take time to shape that shoe. I just go, this is your shoe, and all they gotta do is tack it on for me. What were you gonna say, Larry?
if you know you're going to a ride where you're going to be riding on crushed rock, make sure you got shoes.
Yeah, and you can usually call the ride manager and say, what's your trails like, can I ride it barefoot? And what people are calling us and
The round rocks don't hurt
asking.
too much, it's the sharp crushed rock that hurts the most.
I don't want barefoot on.
Yeah, I don't want to run barefoot either.
Any other questions before we show you this last little bit of, there was a questionnaire put out by the American Endurance Riders Conference called AERC, asking us who our mentors were, if we had a mentor. What got us into this sport, did we have a mentor? And as usual, I didn't actually follow the procedure. I told them the story about meeting the man who looked like Gene Hackman, and told him about Bite the Bullet and why this movie got me interested in distance riding. And I think the most important thing, unless we've lost Gene, have we
We
lost
might
Gene?
have lost him. Go ahead and keep talking.
Okay, the scene that we're looking for, now you saw him rescuing the baby here, And this movie, if you've never seen this movie, like I said, it's just incredible. You've got all these characters, some you hate, some you like, and by God, they're still out on the trail now. I can point at somebody and go, oh, that reminds me exactly of such and such, Now this horse race wasn't as veterinary regulated as ours are, but Gene Hackman says something that you're gonna hear him say if we ever manage to get to this little scene, which to me is my mentorship on distance riding. Oh, and
You're gonna have to keep talking for a little bit longer.
Sing a song, good.
No, this guy already sang the song.
Can you tell about your horse getting lost? And
Okay.
going out looking for
Jen
friend?
this year managed a national championship. And that was a hell of an undertaking, and she did a hell of a job. She managed the Arabian Horse Association National Championship. Buku rides, whole bunches of rides. And I wasn't even gonna go because I don't get along with your Arabian Horse Association. And I won't go into the reasons why, but I don't get along with them well. But Pfizer offered to sponsor me. So I thought, well, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna ride the 100, and I know this trail, and I've won the 100 down here when it's just a local ride, and I think I'll go down and kick some ass. So, John goes with me, and we were gonna start at 6 in the morning. I got up at 2 in the morning to go to the bathroom, and the horse was tied where she was supposed to be, looked just fine. Then I got up at 4 in the morning to start to get ready, and she was gone. My horse was gone.
Been doing this for 20-some years. Horse never got loose from
And disappeared.
being tied up.
Well, they've gotten loose, but they never go anywhere.
Yeah.
Why in the world would they want to go anywhere? There was 120 horses in camp.
I
Why
think
did she
somebody
want to
let the
go?
horse
Well, still, why did she go anywhere? So I'm a mess. I'm looking for my horse. We're looking everywhere. We've called all the police. We've called 3 counties, and we've gone to every little bar and restaurant and hung up a sign and everything. Well, finally we get a call from a cop middle of the afternoon, and he says, well, there's a horse that has a blanket on it standing in this front yard, and it might be your horse. He said, I don't know anything about horses, so I'm not going to go try and catch her, but I'm going to sit out here. And he was like 20 miles away. So we drove there, and sure enough, it was my horse. But here's the funny part. Her best friend was my mule, Shaman, okay? And he, of course, did not go to the ride. So I go out to get her, and she's kind of happy to see me. And I look off to the left, and there's a donkey. She went looking for a donkey, by God. She didn't want to have anything to do with those damn horses in camp. She wanted her donkey. Well, now, obviously, I could not ride the 100-mile ride because it had started at 6 in the morning. So we stuck around, I rode the 50, and I won the 50, so that was kind of nice, but,
She had a 20-mile
Okay.
warm-up.
Oh, man.
All right.
That was something.
now, Jen's gonna hit this, I'm not gonna hit it. So now, Gene Hackman, AKA John, in the bar, 34 years ago, has rescued this little baby horse, okay.
Afternoon. Special milk on the orphan? You don't know anything like Mom. You like horses? You got one, girl? You want one? You got one, then.
Am I gonna pay something?
Yep. Don't ever treat him bad.
I think we just all remember that, don't ever treat him bad, is the hallmark of not just this sport, and not just horses. It's everything that we have been given stewardship over. They're not here for us to abuse them, treat them wrong, and even if you're farmers, even if your job is to send them to market, it doesn't mean that in the time that you are their caretaker, that you have any kind of right to treat them bad.
It's like Mahatma Gandhi.
Yep. And I read a quote from Mandela not too long ago about animals, about treating them properly. So that's our sport, so I expect all of you to run out and buy a pony. And my Aunt Lois here turned 90 yesterday. So, but there are people in this sport who we run into every weekend when we're riding, who do, how old is Shirley May? 74? 75? I mean, this is not a sport for the young. I mean, there's young people in it, but the future of this sport and the biggest number of people who compete in this sport are middle-aged women whose kids have finally gone away, and that, and
I can still do it?
yes.
Oh, yeah?
I've been on a horse once in my life and I fell off.
I had a friend, her name was Louise Rydell, and she had never been, she got on a horse the very first time when she was 42 years old. And it blossomed from there, and then she heard about this sport, and she got involved in this sport. And she was, without a doubt, nationally the most amazing woman. She was the first woman from the Midwest to go out and complete the Tevis Cup. She rode her last ride, and I rode it with her. She was 83 years old. And, should I tell the story?
Yeah, let's finish it.
Oh,
She's-
losing her glasses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's riding with me, and there's a couple other people with us, and we have her behind us, so she's not having to manipulate the trail. All she's got to do is hang on and ride with us. And all of a sudden I hear Louise go, "Laurie, stop!" So I stop, and I'm looking back, and she's starting to get off her horse, and I'm going like, "What's going on, Louise?" And she said, "Well, that branch hit me and knocked my glasses off. I gotta find my glasses." I said, "No, you stay on your horse, we'll look for them." So we're kind of looking for her glasses, and we're not finding them. And I said, "Louise, let's just get to camp, because I don't want us all to be disqualified. There's 5 of us here. We'll get to camp, and then I'll come back, and I'll find your glasses." She says, "Okay." So we're getting ready to go, and she's still not coming. And I look back, and she's fiddling around with her shirt. I'm like, "What are you doing now?" And she took her bra off, and she hung it on a tree. And she said, "How are you going to find my glasses if you don't know where to look?" So we now have a ride every year called the Louise Rydell Memorial Ride, and the finish line is about 40 bras.
Didn't she have her glasses on her?
No, she just had them on her face like
She
this.
didn't lose them.
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking she,
Oh no.
okay.
No, that was the time she lost her Tevis belt buckle.
Oh.
We were at a ride, and she came up to us and said, "I've lost my Tevis belt buckle in an outhouse." So we're all trying to find, she didn't remember what outhouse she went to, and we're all trying to find her Tevis buckle. And finally, we give up, and somebody starts looking for Louise. And we went to her trailer, and she's in her trailer sleeping, and I said, "No, we couldn't find your buckle." "Oh, I found it. I laid it here." She didn't bother to tell us while we went outhouse diving. Well, I think we certainly talked to them, so.